Indeed. Thank you, Jitse. You can shut off also your camera if you prefer. But please note that this will be recorded also because some people could not join today but are interested in the topic and want to catch up later. Okay, just about asking questions or raising hands, there is some explanation, Jitse. On the next slide, I think. Oops. Okay. So, like I said, we'll have the presentation, a few questions, then the Q&A. There is a button to raise your hand, so it's easier to manage the order. Okay. Without further ado, I think we can jump into the agenda. Quite packed, like I said. We'll have a short introduction. And then we have many use cases. People responded with quite varied and interesting use cases. So Martin will inspire us with a talk on local heritage promotion through Wikidata and Light apps with the MyHeritage project. Then Fabien will present their knowledge hub they have at the Flemish Open City Architecture. Mihai will talk about connecting EU vocabularies and opening out using Wikidata, among others. Then we have Werner from DG Grow, who will present a use case on single market obstacles with a data integration from various databases. Lieven will speak about the historical archives service they have at the OIB in the Commission. And finally, Dennis will join us a bit later to show, on top of all these things, what we can do using Wikibase and Wikidata to do question answering over this kind of knowledge graphs. And then we still have time, hopefully, for a fruitful discussion altogether. That's it for today. So just on next slide, please, to say a few words about the broader context of SEMIC and of this action on Wikidata. Claudio, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Max. Thanks everybody for joining this event. There's awesome response, lots of people, and that's a testimony of the great work that Max and team has done. As you know, SEMIC main mission is to offer services for semantic interoperability, so to make this more and more tangible, a tangible thing. The work we're doing with Wikibase, Wikidata, it's really to find a complementary approach of creating semantic assets as opposed to a group of experts that goes into a room and together decides what is the prescribed model for the data. With Wiki approach, we would like this to raise from the bottom of communitarian effort, let's say. So that's why the Wiki approach applied to knowledge graph really plays well in this context. What we are very interested to do as well is to, well, first of all, enable everybody with a sandbox, so rid of the technical aspects, and you can directly use this installation with your data. And also we are interested in following up with those of you who are in this path, in this journey. We would like to follow your progression. Obviously, with this, we start with this workshop, but then there will be other 2 events, but which will be very much hands-on. And so we would like to discover with you what are your use cases, the business questions that you will be able to answer once your journey progress with Wikibase, Wikidata. So again, thanks so much for taking time, and I hope this becomes of value for everybody. Back to you, Mark.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Claudio. Yes, and Seth Van Holland unfortunately could not join today. He's very sorry about that. But anyway, we work closely together, so he will be there next time. We will follow up on this. So just quick recap for those who were not present in April. We had already a workshop in Brussels, and hybrid one at the time. Just who was supposed to be a one-shot just to see if there was some interest, but it was very successful, and so we decided to follow up and now to have these 3 workshops, of which today is the first one. But we don't want to start from scratch again because we discussed many things. Ooh, someone has a mic open. Is Fabian, is it you? Fabian, I think your mic is open. Okay. Okay. Well, so the material of this previous workshop has been made into a course. It's available on the... Fabian, there is a sound issue. Could you please mute your mic, or I don't know if you can do this? Yes.
It helps.
Okay. Well.
Marian komt morgen. Ik kom ook morgen en herinneren.
There is, okay, problem here. Well, so we assume that what was discussed in this previous workshop is already known. We will not start explaining what is Wikidata again, for instance, but yeah, this workshop will be followed by 2 others, and the second one in February will be the central one, the main one, which will be physical in Brussels, and which will be much more hands-on. So this is a kind of preparation, but of course, if you cannot join the second workshop, it's still okay to be here. You are very welcome. You can follow, and hopefully this is also interesting for you. Right, so just on Wikidata and Wikibase, a short recap on the next slide of the few options that you have. So depending on the use case you have, and we will see many different use cases today, there are various options that you can choose, and you can even use several of them and combine them. But so one option, if the data is generic enough or of public interest, you can just contribute to Wikidata and put data there for everyone to use. If you have something more specific and very EU-centric, there is the EU Knowledge Graph that we presented also last time, which is a Wikibase instance focusing on EU-related things. You can also set up your own Wikibase, and an easier way to do it is to use Wikibase as a service in the cloud. So there is an offer on wikibase.cloud, but inside the Commission, Digit is also working on offering Wikibase as a service, and so you don't have to worry too much about maintaining the infrastructure. And finally, the most flexible but also complex one is to set up your own Wikibase. It's a free software developed by Wikimedia Deutschland. It's offered as a Docker image that you can download and install on the server and maintain yourself. So many options here, and they can be combined in different ways. So by external identifiers, you can make links between Wikidata and a Wikibase, so yeah, that you don't just duplicate knowledge, but you keep this in sync. And Dennis will say a few words on this also. And now Wikimedia Germany is also more and more offering to do queries, Sparkle queries on several Wikibase instances at the same time. So Doesn't matter if some of the data is in Wikidata and some is in the EU knowledge graph and some is in the third Wikibase. You could be able to query all of them at once and to reconcile the data. So that's important to know. So just to clarify, on the next slide, I show an example of SEMIC, the Semantic Interoperability Community. And here it's the Wikidata page. So this is probably the most well-known Wikibase instance. It's the biggest one. And you have a page with different statements. It's an instance of community. There is the name in English. There is a URL and so on. But this SEMIC also exists in the EU knowledge graph, which you can see on the next slide. It looks more or less the same because it was imported from Wikidata and it's kept in sync, but you see the logo is different. So here we are in the EU knowledge graph. And you could also have a different SEMIC item in your own Wikibase, which I show in the next slide. We set up already a Wikibase sandbox for the second workshop. It's already there, but the URL will probably change because CPSVAP is a bit cryptic. We try to have something simpler, but here you see also you could have a SEMIC there with various properties. Here it's a bit empty. It's not fully operational yet, but you see the idea. You can have the same reality modeled in different Wikibases, different knowledge graph linked to each other. So to sum up on my final slide, then I will leave the floor to other speakers. Depending on the use case, you can choose different options. If your data is of public interest, always go for Wikidata first because it will have a broader audience, more visibility. If you need some very specific concept or custom properties, then you can use a Wikibase because you have more freedom to create your own ontology. You don't need the approval of the community to create new properties and so on, but always avoid to reinvent the wheel, to redefine things that are already in Wikidata. Instead, you can always import them and pull all this knowledge that is useful for you from Wikidata inside a Wikibase instance like the EU knowledge graph, and for things not existing at all in Wikidata, then of course you can create them, and this works these two approaches complement each other. Okay, this was the introduction. Now I will give the floor to Martin. Martin, we have your slides here. I don't know if you prefer to share yourself or if it's fine like this.
Whatever you prefer.
Okay.
I can share it here or whatever you want. You want me to try?
Let's see. It's on the next slide, I think. Let's see if it's fine for you because we have it here. It should be. Then we avoid switching too much.
Okay, that's perfect for you. Yeah. Okay. If you don't mind, I will tell you next slide. Yeah. Thank you, Max. Thank you, Claudio, and the rest of the team for having me here. I will present one of these use cases. Well, just a little bit about myself. I've been working in the semantic interoperability since 2004, more or less, focus on web standards and working around the web standards in my whole career. And I like this. I'm one of the believers of this semantic technology paradigm, right? So this is from my personal perspective. So this is one of the projects I did by myself, and I moved the project to this Quick App initiative, where you can see here the logo on top of the slide, which is an open source initiative to promote it, to make it available for everyone. So this is something that I did for my own, but I donated to the community. So I think it's aligned with what we are presented here in overall terms. So next slide, please. Everything started when I moved to Leuven in Belgium. I had some knowledge in, well, I knew some French, the language, but I struggled a lot to understand what is going on there. I had no idea of Dutch, also Flemish. So I realized when I tried to understand the monuments, the nice story of the city, the history and the story behind these monuments, I tried to understand the meaning of all of them, and I had a lot of problems to understand all the texts in Flemish. So I started to look at this information using the web, and most of the resources after the first search went to the Wikipedia, right? So I tried to do an internal project for myself to explain or to gather, to collect all the information, the monuments in the city, and also the main points of interest. In this case, focus on cultural heritage. So the artworks in the street, also all the monuments, churches, whatever you can find in the street. But also I realized that every local community, every town, every small town, is proud of the culture and also the history, right? And for whatever reason, it could be cultural heritage, but also could be, I don't know, one region could be famous for their old buildings or the bridges or the breweries. I don't know. It's something that the heritage, the specific heritage of every town, it's important, and they might want to preserve this and preserve and promote this heritage. So we all agree that it's something important, this preservation, and all of every single community might be proud of their culture and the history. So I started one of this project. Please, next slide. The first idea I had was creating an application, a simple application for mobile. And also after that, after the first test, I did a full methodology just to make simple replicating the application and creating third-party applications, and anyone could reuse this project. As I told you, just to promote the heritage, whatever heritage you have to promote in your hometown, using open link data. So at the beginning, I used information from OpenStreetMap, but also in subsequent examples, I took official data from the open data initiatives, the local open data initiatives, or whatever you can find the data. Also, the application is using open source, so public libraries, available libraries, and also the code is available. It should be cross-sourced, so everyone can contribute, and easy to maintain and sustainable. So for free, and everyone can implement a new instance of this application, of this methodology. So easy to develop, no IT required, no IT skills required, and without any cost for the municipality or the local town. So this is the idea. And something simple. It's proven that only just to start a new project, in one day you can have a full project following this methodology. Next slide, please. So I will explain step by step one of these examples, an easy one, not the level one, because it was perhaps more complex using several scripts. But this easy one, you will understand very easily. Please, next slide. Yeah, this is an example in a nearby town or city in Brussels. In Brussels, there is a comic book road. Perhaps most of you are aware of this. But just to summarize, it's full of the city is full of wall paintings recreating the characters and authors of comics that are very popular in Belgium, right? So the objective of this application, this final application, could be offering a full map of these paintings around the city, around where the visitor is. And something simple, just scanning a QR code, open the application, and watching or exploring the city around you based on these paintings. You can visit and you can find the information about this the specific painting that are doing tribute to these authors and characters. So next slide, please. The first step was, this is the methodology, but I will be focused on the step 2, how to create this database. As you can see, it's very simple. It's just clone the repository, do the database, and just customize the application. You can have all the information publicly. So the first step was collecting the information, as I told you. In this case, I was lucky because the Brussels Open Data provided or provides a data set and their open licenses. So I was able to grab it. Please, next slide. Fortunately, it was in a proper format. It was a spreadsheet using CSV and yeah, properly formatted, very complete, and with all the very intuitive, at least to process it. Next slide, please. To refine the data, because I found some of the information that should be aligned with the expected database of the application I created. I needed to refine the data. For instance, splitting the fields for the coordinates. For instance, getting the latitude and longitude. I found also the authors that are, if there are more than one author, they are all together in one field. So I wanted to split them in two. So this kind of refinement of the data. Next slide, please. And after loading this first data set, as I told you, I was lucky because it was high quality, the data set, all the very complete, and I found 64 points of interest all around the city with proper coordinates, and yeah, the data cleansing, it was very easy because it was properly formatted, and it was fine to do it. Next slide. And well, I refined all the data, but I got some difficulties to understand some of the things, and also to show this information to the end user, right? Who was or who is this character, or what is this about? Okay, I have the name, the term, in this case, Billy the cat, but who is this character, or what is famous for? And also the authors. I didn't know anything about these authors. I had some information. You can have some idea of some of the most famous ones, but not from all. Next slide, please. And this is why I looked for the semantics of this at the beginning for the character, and using the reconciliation service of this nice tool, OpenRefine, I was able to find, please, next slide, the information about the semantics. Well, to match the semantics of the term with the semantics itself. So in this case, now I was able to understand, or the machine was able to understand what was about this specific row. And next slide. And I continue with the refinement of this information and collecting information from in this case, from the Wikidata. From Wikidata, after having this matching between the terms and the official, let's say, the semantics of the character I wanted to find the information, I was able to collect the image. I was able to collect information about external references to other graphs, to collect, to continue collecting information, external information, enriching the data set, and also information like the period of time where this comic book was famous, or when it was created, and also next slide, information about the rest of the content, or the references in this data set, like the authors. And this is the process of the export of the database of this point of interest, and collecting the data .json in the proper format to just insert in the templates of the code I created. Next slide, please. So this is the entity, one of the points of interest, how it looks like, just to include in the application, and the screenshot of the application, what you can see here. And something that you can see in the example is that you can have the information using this Wikidata. You can collect the information in different languages. So I have at least in a couple of languages, because you can continue with the extract the information and enrich the information Based on the term, you can collect information from the Wikidata and also extracting the different terms in the different or the different names in the different languages. So this is a nice point to enrich the application, and also the possibility to add links to external information. In this case, to the Freebase, and also to some other databases like a comic database, an official one, or a community-driven website. So you can collect this information and you can put this information to enrich the database. So you can see this is the example, the final example. Next slide, please. After just 1 hour of cleaning the data and pushing this information into the application, you can have something like this. Very simple, intuitive, covering the use case I presented at the beginning. And the nice thing is that you can have multilingual content. You can have the information very accurate, what is the coordinates, the geo coordinates, to make the most of the device with the GPS and so on. And also you can continue extracting the information. In this case, not only being able to use the name or the picture, but also collecting information about the authors, the information about the authors, the biographies, etc. So this is something I did in 1 hour, and you can do it in 1 hour replicating the methodology. Next slide, please. And something interesting is that this methodology, using the Wikidata approach, can be applied to any scenario, not only cultural heritage, as I mentioned, but also, for instance, there is another example for monumental trees in France. So you can imagine the Open Data Initiative published the inventory of the monumental trees. They can include some pictures or some information about the dimensions of the tree, but using the Wikidata, you can collect the information, the proper information, the technical information about the botanical information about this, the species, the genus, etc. So you can enrich the database very easily and very quickly. And some others like tourism, collecting beaches in Barcelona, for instance, or illustrious women in Paris. Or another one, I think it's the most interesting one for exploring the possibilities of Wikidata, is the Big Bang Theory in Leuven. It's an artwork around the city with small medallions, metallic medallions representing galaxies. And depending on the place where you are located, it represents a specific age of the universe, depending on the Big Bang theory, the expansion of the universe. So you can imagine that at the beginning, I only had the information about the medallion and the name of the galaxy representing this. So you can imagine the amount of information you can collect in the Wikidata, the official one, and the official one because it's linked with other knowledge graphs from proper authorities, and very technical information that you can rely on this if you don't have any idea, like myself. So I created a really nice, I think, really nice application with technical information about this, astronomical information about astronomy, about these galaxies, without any knowledge, right? And also multilingual, also able to understand, because it's you can collect information from other sources to help users to understand the content, the meaning of the content. And this is the example I wanted to present. For sure, this methodology, the code and everything is documented, as well as the whole process to create a new one. And the good thing is that many people is interested in this, and I usually help them to create a new project. If you have any idea, if you want to implement a new one, I will be glad to help you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Martin. Very interesting to see the potential of Wikidata, in this case, to enrich your own data. And we saw that we can do this also without too many technical skills. For instance, using OpenRefine, which is one of the options we will explore at the next workshop. I see a couple of questions. I think I saw Mihai. You have we can have a quick question. No, Mihai.
was just I wanted to react. No, not.
Thank you.
Okay.
I saw clapping. Thank you.
It was clapping, sorry. Okay. The others also were clapping then. I thought I saw raised hands, but so is there, if there is a quick questions or two, can take them now. But if there are no raised hands, then maybe we go to the next talk and we keep the questions for the end. Okay. Thanks a lot again, Martin. And now Fabian, are you with us? Yes. Okay, so the floor is yours to present the Vloka Kenisup use case, which is using Semantic Media Wiki at this time, not Wikibase, but still very interesting to see the semantics in this project and how we can link to also Wikidata Wikibase. Fabio. We don't hear you yet. Fabian, I see your mic is on, but we don't hear anything.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your patience. I've been experiencing some IT technical difficulties.
Okay.
But okay, as long as we're good now, it's fine. So we carefully try to present to prepare full slides concerning our Vloka Kenisup. We could have prepared a lot more, but we really try to stick to the basics and make sure that at least the slides we present will stick and what we tell will also resonate with the context of the session that we're having today. First and foremost, we'd like to start with a short overview of our Knowledge Hub. Our Knowledge Hub, as you said, Max, is built on a Semantic Media Wiki. That's a choice that has been made early on to proceed with Semantic Media Wiki because it offers some possibilities that are very, very valuable to our core business. Vloka, what is Vloka? Vloka is an instance from the Flemish government that's focusing on open city architecture. We want from Flanders on create an interoperable region that is linking solutions to each other. It also is creating scalable solutions. So the solutions that are created for small or big cities should be also implementable by cities or communities of another scale, which is very important. And also try to focus on the reusability of whatever that we are creating. So if we're working with building blocks in our architecture, we'd like, of course, to make sure that these building blocks can be reused in other solutions in other cities. What we do with our Knowledge Hub is basically the same. The 4 keywords that I just named will also be very relevant when we look at our Media Wiki. So we're working with the Semantic Media Wiki right now, and that is one of the strengths that we are having with that Semantic Media Wiki, is that all of these possibilities are enabled by setting up the system correctly. And doing that, it allows us to move from knowledge more to wisdom, which means that we can create a story and we really enhance navigation within our Knowledge Hub to make sure that all the information that is needed, of course, is accessible by whoever wants to consult that information. One of the strengths also is that we succeeded, or at least we tried to reproduce a view of our Knowledge Hub that does not resemble like a Media Wiki environment, but is very accessible to whoever is visiting our website to make sure that the threshold is as low as could be to facilitate navigation in our Knowledge Hub. So the touch and feel is like a regular website, has also the type font and the format of our regular Flanders websites, but is completely built on a Semantic Media Wiki. Okay, so we can move on to the next slide. So what you're seeing now is a page of the city of Ostend, or basically said a page where we do something with the city of Ostend. What you see now is one of our projects that we have fully loaded onto our Knowledge Hub. Every project that we have, or maybe even each page that we have, will be fed by a lot of metadata or attributes, or how we want to call it. I think the right name might also be properties. But most important is to try to log all of the correct properties for each page, because it gives us a lot of valuable information. And whenever we log all of the correct information, properties for each page, it also enables us to create some kind of mini knowledge graph in our Knowledge Hub, which allows us also to navigate from one page to another, or to query data based on the metadata that we can find on a specific page. As you can see now in this overview, so we have on the left-hand side, we have the body, where we give some background and some information, the core of our page. And on the right side, we will find a sidebar where we have all of our properties logged from that page on. What's also interesting to know is that some of the information that you have here is not actually stored on the page itself, but is actually loaded, is actually queried from a different page. For instance, when we go to the field that we have in the middle, which says Vloca session, that field, Vloca session, we do not adapt it on this page, we adapt it on that page, and it's linked to this page. So that's the semantic also of using the semantic media wiki, that you can recall properties from one page to another, which means that it's very low maintenance, and that you can recreate a lot of views based on your needs, and that you can really link all the relatable content onto each other. For the example, we'll also click to the city of Ostend, which is on the next slide. And we can see here that our use case, which focuses around the city of Ostend, can be a really good use case towards Wikidata. First and foremost, we have the body. On the body now, we don't load any data, but that is one of the possibilities that we could use the data that is stored within Wikidata to populate the body. So we could generate a few fields that will give us a little bit of information, a little bit of background on the city of Ostend, maybe a few pictures and so on, to make sure that we have a lot of information on this page without having to manually maintain and add that information. On the right-hand side, we have, again, our sidebar. Our sidebar here right now, at this point, is only set up to accommodate 2 manual inputs on this page level, which is the logo and the website. So the other fields that you can see here are also semantic links. So we're going to load and extract that information from other pages. But in addition to the information that is there, we see a good use case to generate or to load some Wikidata information as a property and load that into this overview. So we could load lots more specifications for this specific page without having to store and to maintain that data within our own semantic media wiki. But we're still looking at information that can be valuable. So I'm talking about can, without having any certainty that it will add value. But the added value will be more clear when we move on to the next slide, where we can see what we are currently doing with our semantic media wiki, and what a potential use case could be if we start working with a Wikibase extension. So there is an extension available for some instances of MediaWiki, where you can add Wikibase extension to populate Wikidata into a semantic media wiki environment, which is very interesting. First and foremost, what we do with semantic media wiki, I'm just going to read out the list, is going to be easier, is that we are able to load different page types. Every page type has a separate set of properties defined for that specific page type, so we can customize the sidebar, for instance, at our wish. Properties are interchangeable, which means that we can link the properties that we store in one page and reload them onto another page, which allows us to link and dynamically navigate also in our knowledge hub. And we can query page properties. So let's say that you have, based on what we are doing from Vloka, you have 100 smart city initiatives, which is very interesting. Well, we can query that information and see, for instance, what specific projects have been doing something around smart economy, for instance, which is very valuable information. On top of that, we could add a lot of more information based on what we already have stored in our own properties on a semantic media wiki, but also based on the information that we could potentially extract using the Wikibase extension. And that would be a step to move towards a smarter and more connected knowledge hub. So what would the possible potential use case be specifically? Well, first and foremost, we could populate additional properties. For instance, we are looking at the city of Ostend. We are only using 2 fields right now, but we want to see a lot of other data. Well, we could do that using that extension. We could also display conditional information. Now we're talking about Ostend, but let's say that we use a different page type. That we are maybe saying, if that field is filled in, you're going to generate some of the data. If that field is not filled in, you're not going to load the data. And we can also transform that data and so on. It also will allow us to load sets of data in different languages, because right now we're only using Flemish, but we also would like to see and explore opportunities in loading it in different languages. That would be a way for us to make it a little bit easier, because we can load the data without having to translate it all the time. Some of the fields for us that might be very interesting would be, for instance, a locator map image, where we can see Stad Oostende, of the city or Ostend, where it's actually located on the map of Flanders or Belgium. We could load the official websites. We could load the area surface, the population, Twitter page, and so on, which for Vloka could be very interesting fields. I just mentioned area surface and population. Those are 2 fields that, for instance, you could also use to calculate specific values. If you want to know the population by square meter, for instance, we could use those 2 fields to calculate that. And once we have that information, it could also help us to categorize cities. For instance, we want to know what cities or what municipalities are mostly rural, so we don't have a lot of citizens living on a small surface, for instance. We could also do the opposite, show us the cities that have a lot of citizens on a square mile or square kilometer, and show us what kind of smart city initiatives have been used by that city, because it might be interesting also for other cities. And that will help us using Wikidata to map the smart city landscape in Flanders even better, as we are trying to do right now. So that's the 4 slides that I have. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Great. Thanks a lot, Fabien. It's good to see you have already a quite advanced solution in terms of semantics with the Semantic Media Wiki, but we see the potential for further add-ons with this Wikibase extension, and it's good that the two tools can work together, and this is something we will explore during the second workshop as well. Excellent. So any questions at this point for Fabien? No? Okay, then I suggest we move on to the next presentation, and Mihai will explain a bit what they have explored at the publication office of the Commission with different vocabularies around about the EU. Mihai, the floor is yours.
Max, will you also share the PowerPoint?
You prefer to share it yourself, or we have it here? We have it here,
so
we can move on. Thanks.
So first, an introduction. My name is Mihai Păunescu. I work as a technical consultant for the reference data team at the Publication Office. It's an interinstitutional service provider. that might be a little bit vague what it means. So practically helps the European institutions to produce, disseminate different types of publications. This was the original scope of the institute. Originally, this was just about publishing on paper, but in time it migrated to digital channels, of course, channels that became services that are available online. You might be aware of some of those services. You can see them on the slide. It's a portal like Cordis, where you see of research projects, Eurolex, where you see the European legislation, European tenders portal, where all the procurement activities of the member states across European institutions are made public, and those are just some of the platforms. These services are offering access to information in different domains. Each one of them is heavily data oriented. Practically, you have lots of content. European legislation for the last 50 years, quite some volume of data there. Only considering the metadata, that is something. Okay, so maintaining each one of them independently, each one of those portals independently, it's an adventure in itself. It's activity. But now think what it means to provide multiple large platform like this with under all the official languages of the European Union.
Mihai, just sorry to interrupt, but we are having some sound issues. It's cutting from time to time, so maybe you should switch off your camera or
camera.
Yeah, because I thought it was just me, but Christophe is saying the same in the chat. Thanks.
Okay, sorry. So for without putting order into these things, it will be hard to do. So in this organization, forced OP to consider reference data early on in the process. Instead of using separate list of tags for each platforms, why not have one single thesauri for all of them to help organize the data? This is how Eurovoc appeared. Started with a large thesauri, then it developed into a catalog with hundreds of vocabularies of all kinds of types. Imagine, for example, lists of countries, list of languages, list of procedures, European programs, units of measure, and everything in between. The intent is to offer to all interested parties, mainly teams from other Europeans and also OP own teams, access to centrally managed list of terms. This list that they are not improvised by the developer. Multilingual variants for the labels in all official languages, wherever necessary. They have definition. They have a historicity, you know, when that term appeared, when it started to be used on. Some of these lists are developed by OP. Others are only hosted by OP or in OP store and presented on the EU Vocabularies Reference Data Catalog. By other, I mean institutions like Europass, like Eurostat, like on, which are also getting. So we mainly use Vocbench to edit our vocabularies, and then we deploy them in Cellar, our triple store, and on Showvoc to disseminate the vocabularies. I don't get into details what each of those tools is doing, because it's not the. Once you have built the vocabularies, the work does not stop. We need to maintain and to connect them with the outside world. We can see at the end of the slide, on the previous slide, a number for alignments. This is a way to see that, to say that you want to connect with the outside world. It's still on the previous slide. Max, please. So
sorry, behind the sound is still cutting, so it's not so easy to follow you.
Okay.
But
Many of those alignments are between pairs of vocabularies inside the same data store, but more than a few do connect with the outside world. And this is where, for us, Wikidata takes an important place in the picture. We already part of those. We are already alignments with Wikidata. Now we can jump to the next one. Max? Okay. So you might ask why? What's the role of Wikidata here? So the base view around alignments is that we need them to in order to make easier the exchange between different systems. But this is just the beginning. We live in a society where data needs to be it's the base of all the processes. The vocabulary itself are becoming important. Connecting them important as publication in themselves. Connecting them gives them some additional value through the synergies that are developed through this alignment. In the world we are living in, publishing in a silo, it's a dead end. So ideally, we try to look at the alignment as a way to enrich those vocabularies. Ideally, we should connect with everything outside, but this is not realistic because we don't have enough resources to do this. So this is where the alignment Wikidata becomes connected. Wikidata has an advantage. It has the necessary mass to give a meaning to the interconnected concepts with it. It can help. It can play a role of a backbone for us to further connect with vocabulary that are outside, that we do not directly connect with them. This is why at OP we see this backbone as important for our future development. For the next slide, please. Okay, so as previously said, we have performed alignment between some of our vocabularies and Wikidata. You can see 3 examples listed there between Eurovoc and Wikidata, within the country authority table to Wikidata, and the latest one with colleagues from it's called the knowledge graph. We also moved on with the corporate bodies. We use this to perform these. We use Stardust course mappings, relations, to establish links between our vocabularies in Wikidata and Wikidata. That same information is stored in Wikidata with a specific property. If my memory doesn't play games, it's property P2238. From there, based on the Wikidata links to other vocabularies, using syndicated queries, we can develop additional links. Initially, performing this alignment, we have faced some technical difficulties related with the possibility to interrogate Wikidata directly. The public SparkQL endpoint is not very easy to interact with because of course it has a lot of traffic. So to help in this area, we have been directed to the colleagues from the EU Knowledge Graph project, and with them the process started to move. Luckily, started to move again. As a next step, we intend to integrate as much possibly the alignment process with our editorial environment. That's the main scope, to have a mechanism to keep this as a live project. We also have hope to be able in time to provide support for other EU institutions to advance in this by mapping their own vocabularies with significant reference data assets outside that are made somehow connectable using the connection with Wikidata. For that, we are assembling the necessary components, putting in place the procedure, and for that you need also to work with the right people and the right tools. We also intend to interact with Wikidata services to complement these things. This is where we are for the moment. We try to develop the network of owners of reference data assets to try to connect with them and make the EU vocabularies in general more available to the outside world. So that's how Wikidata could be helpful for us. That should be all. Thank you very much, Max.
Thanks a lot, Mihai. There was a slight sound issue at the beginning, but at the end it was much better. The sound quality is clear now. So hopefully everyone was able to follow, because it's a very interesting use case of how we can use Wikidata as a knowledge hub to link decentralized vocabularies together through Wikidata and then reuse also optionally in a Wikibase. So very comprehensive example. Great. Is there a question, or should we move on and keep all the questions for the end? Maybe that's easier. And now we'll have a quite different use case by Werner from DG Grow, because here in this case Wikidata Wikibase is not used at all yet. It's just investigated as a potential solution that could help for a particular business question. So also very interesting. And Werner, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Max, for the opportunity of presenting the project here. My name is Werner van Bollen. I work at DG Grow in the data support unit for the whole DG. And I work specifically on the internal market data. And I had some previous work experience in the project of the Single Digital Gateway, which you will see will come in handy with this project. Maybe I start explaining the context of the Single Market Obstacles Tool, or SMO tool, as we say it internally, because it's part of the larger project Single Digital Gateway, which aims to be the single access point for the internal market services. So the SDG, it consists of 3 main pillars. No, we're not into that slide yet. Sorry. It consists of 3 main pillars to help citizens and business exploit the benefits of the single market, and provides 3 types of services: information services, assistance services, and cross-border access to procedures. Now, this heavily relies on Commission and Member States cooperation, because essential parts of the information and the assistance is provided by Member States. So that's also the reason why we have put this in a regulation, because the Commission does not have the right to impose a specific structure to how information is presented by the Member States on their web pages, and we basically take information from them, and we need to search through the information that is provided. So the approach is setting quality standards and requirements into a legal standard. And this is applied by your Europe website, because if you look and Google for Single Digital Gateway, you will not find anything operational. Actually, Single Digital Gateway services are only visible to the public, and because they are implemented on the your Europe website. All this regulation was established in 2018, and the system was up and running since 2020. Next slide, please. Now going into the SMO tool specifically, the regulation empowers citizens and business by providing them feedback the opportunity to provide feedback on the functioning of the whole single digital gateway, as well as on the obstacles encountered in the single market. And the aim is then to improve the whole functioning of the services, as well as improve rulemaking and enforcement. So the single market obstacles tool is specifically designed for input on obstacles. So this picture here shows the system architecture for the SMO tool for the reporting of the obstacles. The green part indicates what we have up and running in a pilot stage since January 2021, and which is available to the public. Then the working process is indicated in red, and that is the reporting by citizens and businesses of cases through a form on your Europe that are stored in a database, and on this basis we generate statistics and dashboard in an internal management tool. So the web-based management tool gives the Commission access to all the information, while also national coordinators have access to the overall statistics and only the individual cases to their own country. We also plan to include the information collected from the Commission Assistance Services databases, such as Your Europe Advise and Solvit, that basically deal with interacting with citizens and business to resolve particular cases. And also from external organizations, such as business organizations, we would like to integrate information. All this serves a purpose legally to provide a report on obstacles every 2 years to the Council and Parliament as a minimum obligation. Slide number 3, please. To give you an idea how the data is processed in the management system, I show you here a snapshot. So it provides the raw case data and the number of filters that can narrow the search down to a particular time period, and categories that you can see here listed are based on the fields on the intake form that is available on Your Europe. If people navigate through Your Europe, they will have in the menu report an obstacle, and then they can get this is basically the fields that they can fill as feedback, which is country of origin, country where the obstacle occurs, some predefined categories describing obstacles with subcategories, and then a list of issues like whether it's a lack of information problem, or whether it's procedural, or it's a rule, and whether this is on national or rather EU level that the problem situates. And finally, the final input is then we provide a free description field for describing the problem. All this data can be exported to Excel. Next slide, please. Since the launch of the tool as a pilot in January 21, we had some important developments until now, mainly focused on the data intake. So the current intake is based on a minimal listing of single market topics that were generally decided for the whole of the gateway in an annex of the regulation, but without further analysis of the needs of different stakeholders. So in the meantime, we developed 2 separate intake forms, one for citizens, one for business, with their specific data fields. And we developed a technical solution for integrating the data from external organizations into the overview dashboard. Next slide. So to this purpose, in 21-22, we invested a lot of time and effort in finding out what data we should put together, what the structure should be like, and to find a way to aggregate data from different sources and make sense of them. So first we inventorized within DG Grow the relevant databases used on for getting information on internal market issues. And we developed a common categorization based on the most promising databases, mainly Your Europe Advice, Solvit, European Consumer Centers, and the Enterprise Europe Network. We developed a data model that was tested internally and externally with stakeholders, specifically on the capacity to include also data from future sources. For example, for businesses, we could cluster across the data across the databases around 5 major themes: business environment, work, taxation, goods, and services. Next slide, please. The fields in those databases were mutually exclusive in all of them, and for most cases, the information could be reordered to other categories and fields aggregated where necessary. We also looked at what we also found important was the empty fields in the databases, because these databases have been run for a number of years now, and we could decide on deleting most of these altogether as irrelevant. The databases were also complementary, looking at different aspects of internal markets, and we could combine the fields to get a more complete, consistent data modeling, offering a more complete picture. Next slide. This table summarizes how we regroup the fields across the databases. So despite the use of different labels and ways of categorizing the input. So for example, we deleted health and safety heading and moved them to the subgroup of work. We moved public procurement and competition to business environment. And we relabeled similar categories with under a common name, and all services fields that were dispersed in the databases across different categorizations, we moved them to the overall group of services. Next slide. So this led to a more consistent categorization under the new data model. For example, in the business environment, a company can report a problem in subcategory 1 with market access, further split up into subcategory 2. It's related to legal barriers to entry, and then provide a free text. Well, I didn't get permit X because of reason Y. This is, so we go through all the internal market aspects through a tree to drill down to the specific information. Next slide. Yes, since the idea is that the SMO becomes a focal point of data collection, we teamed up with the Enterprise Europe Network, because they already had a continuous survey called SME Feedback Survey running, and it collected similar information, although it was more targeted towards the SME support angle. But still, we didn't have to start from scratch. So as a result, we can now move to a separate intake, as I already told you, for citizen business, more tailored to policy needs, and add extra intake fields based on the comparison of the EEN approach with the SMO approach. For example, you can declare now, I'm a business in Belgium with a problem with employment in Bulgaria related to the posting of workers, and then added company information such as size, age, sector, the problem type, whether it's complex procedure, lack of information, and then the even the legal instrument involved, and suggested solutions. So this led to a more expanded data model. Next slide. Because this, sorry, I think this is the same one. Next slide. So this considerably expands the data intake. So in summary, citizen and business can fill out a dedicated form on your Europe and provide feedback directly. So that is kind of unfiltered data. We also receive data from the EEN network collected by the support agencies in the network, which is more filtered. And we allow then, in addition, business organizations to provide aggregated data directly into the system, which is also pre-processed information. So in addition, we can source also data from the assistance services, your Europe Advice, Solvit, because there's some databases behind them as well, because they are also under the umbrella of the SDG. They signed up to be an assistance service adhering to the quality criteria. And yeah, in the future, we envisage to tap also into what national authorities may collect on their site. For example, under the SMET, the Single Market Enforcement Task Force. Next slide. We have many internal market tools in Grow, and surely there is no lack of data. But what we don't have is a way to integrate these data and get an overall picture of the state of the internal market. So, and that is, I think, and that also came out from the discussions with stakeholders on all sides, that the SMO dashboard attempts to just do that, and that is basically the biggest value of the approach. That we can basically individual cases can be filtered on a number of criteria, evaluated on their merits for further action, and then exported for further analysis. We can also create statistics and dashboards across multiple data sets by country or organization providing the data. We can categorize the obstacles by team, problem area, and nature. So with the soon to be finalized integration, and I'm talking February this year, of data from two business organizations that volunteer to provide their data, we would also allow for identifying the source of information and even grant these external providers direct access to the system, the overview statistics, and a possibility to share their data with each other. Final slide, please. So under the SDG, we have developed a search engine that allows visitors to look for information based on natural language queries. Unfortunately, we don't. This is not what we have in the SMO. This is something that can be further explored. Your Europe also in general collects statistics on user navigation. These are not included in the SMO tool yet, and as such not exploited in the user feedback. Then direct user feedback, it needs to be filtered for relevance. On that side, apart from spam filters, we are looking for ways to do away with non-issues by further analyzing the free text. Information from linked internal and external data sources, it is filtered by experts. However, there are many existing reports and information sources on obstacles that we can potentially tap into, possibly also available online that we haven't considered. But how can we integrate that information into the tool in an efficient way? And then finally, reporting is not part of the current tool. It currently calculates the indicators, and then that still even need to be tuned to the user needs. But starting from the data export from the system, we would need to develop customized reports, not only the biannual report to the Council and Parliament, as I talked about, but also reports to relevant Commission units, or even customized reports to stakeholders. So interestingly, and this is the final word on this, when the original vision for the SMO tool was stated, we had in mind having an EU map where we could drill down for the information for each country and then go immediately to the most pressing problems. So a well-designed tool that provides the feedback to the users on what has been done with their feedback is probably the biggest incentive to provide further inputs and create like a positive loop. Yes, and yeah, I took some other notes from the discussions with Max, which is
but maybe we can just close now and come back during the discussion.
Yeah, the machine readability of the report and context to the cases would also be enriching what we have.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Werner, for the very comprehensive use case. We see the complexity, the challenge of mapping all these fields from different databases with all these challenges. And I know you are looking forward also to the feedback of the community, and hopefully we still have enough time after the 2 remaining presentations. So let's jump to the next one. And Lieven will present the work they are doing at the Historical Archives Service of the Commission. Lieven, please.
Hello, I'm trying to switch everything on. You see and hear me, I guess. Okay, my presentation is very short, so that's already one thing. I only have, I think, 4 slides. Okay, so I am Lieven Baert. I work as an historian and archivist in the Historical Archives Service of the European Commission, and since a long time now. I do not have any IT background. I'm a simple historian and archivist, but of course, these days when working in this domain of activity, we are also confronted with a lot of IT-related situations. So every EU institution has a historical archive service. So we are the one from the European Commission. And most of those services, they started to exist as from the 80s because of a specific regulation that came into force at that time. So we exist since then as a service in the Commission, and we manage the archives of the European Commission, but not only of the European Commission being the institution as we know it today, but also of some of the preceding institutions. We have there the High Authority for Coal and Steel, and another example is, of course, the Euratom Commission. You might have heard of those. These institutions existed from the 50s until 68, when everything was then merged into the single European Commission. What do we do? Well, we manage paper archives, a lot of them, and that's, let's say, still our main task. We process those archives, we select them, we try to select what is interesting for the public to bring to the outside world. We create metadata about them, that's the archival description. We digitize those paper archives and we publish them. We, of course, also exchange this information to the outside world in another way than just through our public website. We are working together, and that's something that all the archive services of the European institutions are doing. We are exchanging our data also with the European University Institute in Florence, who is actually the hub, if you want, of all archival data to bring that together and to disseminate that on a single portal. So the next slide, please. Okay, so we do not have, let's say, implemented solutions that make our information or data interoperable, but it's clearly on the agenda. So We are looking into several possibilities to do that. I think the main work or the main efforts of the last 10 years is mainly about data creation, because that's of course also something important. You cannot make your data interoperable if you do not have it. I think that is very easy to understand. So in many cases, we had to create data from scratch for various reasons. The three examples that I will quickly present to you, they actually come from, in the first place, a project that we have since a long time to do something about corporate information that we have. That's the first one. And also because we were a bit charmed by the initiative of the EU Knowledge Graph, where we noticed that some ideas or some data started to be collected around this corporate information on the one hand, but also around building information. And that is the third set I will explain at the end. Now, first, some words about some explanations about the corporate information that we manage within the Historical Archive Service. So we took the decision already, I think, 8 years ago, to create a relational database with a web interface, an internal application, to start encoding the information about the history of all the historical changes and entities of the overall organization, which represents the Commission as a whole. So we created a data model, and we started encoding information at the level of directors general, directorates, up to the level of units. So we have in that database around 15,000 records. And you see here a very simple selection of them. So you can see that we maintain information about the name of the organizational entities. We have dates, end dates, start dates. We indicate what kind of place they take in the organization. And so we have this information, as I said, from DG up until unit, and this from the period of 1952 until today. We also try to connect that data so that we can keep track of the historical changes. So in certain cases, we can trace current DGs back up until their creation in the 60s, for instance, and we maintain all the historical changes. So that's what you see on the screen. There are more attributes than what you see, so it's a quite big data set, I can say. And what do we want to do with that? Well, in the first place, we use that information in our own archives management system, because we use that to connect to the archives themselves. We use that to index the archives. We use that to keep track of all kind of archive transfers and other processes that we apply. So we use that data intensively. What we would like to do is to bring that information also somehow to the outside world. And we have not yet made up our minds to see how exactly we will do that. We believe that there are many possibilities. We have already had discussions with the Publications Office, because they already have an authority list for corporate bodies, so we could try to align our information to that authority list. We could consider to contribute to the EU Knowledge Graph. So there are many possibilities, and of course the underlying tools to be used, that's of course still very much open. Can you give me the next slide, Max? So this is something completely different. I have not yet mentioned it. So one of the other information vocabularies that we currently use in our archives system are lists of person names. We have information about these person names at various places, so we have them also in the system that manages our historical information that I just proposed. So you see that the screenshot at the left-hand side, so the first columns there, it looks a bit like what you see or what you saw on the previous screen. So we maintain also that information in there. So you see here the responsibles of the DGs, at least some of the roles. So it's just a very small part of the data. And what we also have in another system is a much longer list of person names, which is not really structured. What you see is that, so we have already manipulated a little bit the data in order to have, for instance, first name and family name separated, because in the list itself and in the database, we do not have that in that way. So it's a pure text string. So what we would like to do is to investigate and how far we could come to a list that is commonly used amongst the different archive services. And of course, this is important to explain. The idea of this list of person names is to have them as having a certain importance in relation to European history. So it should be, of course, very well scoped. And also for this, we would like to see and how far we could use any of the tools. Wikidata, of course, is a very clear and important source of information, because a lot of alignments could be envisaged between the data that we have and the data that is already in the public domain. Hopefully, we can come, and we have already discussed that in the past, we could come to some kind of common management between the various archive services of the EU institution and the European University Institute in Florence to have something in common. The next slide, please. And you can actually already skip them. This one I will not talk about.
Okay, yes, if you can come to the conclusion, because we were
yes.
running
So
out
yeah,
of time.
and this is actually the last little set of data. It's not coming from the historical archive service, and I just want to show it to you because it's data that is being stored in another system that is managed by OIB. It's the real estate information system that is used to maintain information about all the buildings that are being used, owned and occupied by the European Commission. So it's information that exists. It's already published somehow on the European Commission public websites. I just presented here to you because it could also be an interesting case to use in the context of the EU knowledge graph, because you have clearly the intention to publish also data in relation to this topic. And so these are just 3 ideas. We have more data about other topics as well, but I think those are a good starting point. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Liv. And indeed, a lot of potential for data integration to reuse the work you have done inside the EU knowledge graph, which is one of the possibilities, a Wikibase instance that we are mentioning. And we were supposed to have one more use case from the Parliament, but unfortunately, our colleague is sick and cannot join. But it's also, I mean, regarding the time that is left, it's not so bad, because we still want to have some time to discuss. And so the last presentation today is by Dennis. It's not actually a use case, but more an example of what you can build then on top. It's not just about modeling data or using one tool rather than the other, but the whole approach of using Wikibase and linked data will enable extra features on top of your data. And this is what Dennis is going to show us with question answering now. Dennis, go ahead.
Hello, so I'm Dennis Diefenbach from the QA company, and yeah, so it's a bit a teaser for the next workshop. So should I present the slides?
Yeah, I was just thinking they are not there because they are in PDF. I can share them, or you, as you prefer.
I can share them. Was just not prepared for it.
Yes, sorry. I also have them if you want.
No, in fact, I prefer if I can share myself. I prefer. You can see my screen.
Yes, we see Skype. But, okay. Perfect.
Okay. So hello, I'm Dennis Diefenbach. I'm working for the QA company, and as Max said, yeah, I will present two little pieces that work well together with Wikibase. So the first piece is some plugin that we developed for Wikibase to reuse knowledge from Wikidata in particular. So imagine you have set up your Wikibase, and at the beginning, unfortunately, it's empty, and you basically have to invent everything. But on the other hand, there are a lot of concepts that are already out there, in particular in Wikidata, because it's such a big knowledge base. And this entity can be, for example, countries, genes, historic people, European institution. And so we developed this plugin that basically allows to reuse knowledge from Wikidata. So more or less how it works, you get your knowledge base, and then when you search for SEMIC. And then basically we see that locally there is no concept that is called SEMIC, but we basically propose suggestions from Wikidata, for example, semiconductor, semantic operability, interoperability. Community for the Cooperation of Semantic Interoperability, which is basically the SEMIC that we are searching for. There is apparently also a town in Slovenia, and so on. But basically, if you select the second entry, basically what will happen is that we will grab the information from Wikidata and put them locally in your Wikibase instance, so that you do not basically have to reinvent this concept, but you can reuse it locally in your context. So here's another example. Basically, there is this person that is editing an entity. This person is living in China, and now we are adding programs in. And now we would like to say that he programs in Flask, which is a Python framework. And of course, we want not to reinvent in this point in time this concept of Flask, but we have it in Wikidata. So again, we are searching locally and also on Wikidata, and we find that there is this Python web framework. So we can select this entity and use it here to basically create statements in this local Wikibase. Yeah, this was the zoom in. So basically, this plugin that we are going also to use next time in the tutorial allows basically to mix knowledge. You have your local knowledge, and you have the knowledge that is available in Wikidata, and you can basically use both together in your same instance. You can also mix it in the sense that imagine you would like to use the European Parliament as a concept, so you clone it locally, but then you would like to say something about the European Parliament that is not in Wikidata. And then basically you can add statements locally about this entity that will not be published in Wikidata, but will be part of your local knowledge repository. And so you can basically mix your local knowledge with your external knowledge. And there is also this concept of syncing knowledge in the sense that this plugin has a small functionality, so that imagine now the European Parliament has a new president, and someone on Wikidata for sure is going to edit this information. And so instead of having yourself basically to update this knowledge. There is something like a sync button that will basically compare your local entity with your entity in Wikidata, make a diff, and then basically all the changes that were made in Wikidata over this point in time will become part of your knowledge, local knowledge itself. The second part is about question answering. So we have created a connector between Wikibase and QAnswer, which is a question answering engine. And basically, you can, on one side, edit data in Wikidata and then directly ask questions on it. For example, before I was saying that we are trying to clone this SEMIC concept from Wikidata to Wikibase. So once it is inserted, you can already see that it is proposed in this type as you search as a new concept. So you can search for it. You can ask something like who participates in SEMIC, and then we construct this interpretation for you. Participated in the semantic interoperability community, and you have these two people. You can ask something like who participated in SEMIC and comes from France, and then we find basically this person. Yeah, that is basically it. And what we would like to do with these two parts basically is a small tutorial in which everyone connects to a Wikibase instance, and we would like to model this the workshop itself. So we are saying there is the concept of a workshop that is part of SEMIC. I'm a participant, I'm coming from France, I'm speaking a certain language, I can program certain programming languages, I'm part of a certain institution, and we basically want to model all this knowledge by reusing entities in Wikidata, and at the same time we want to basically use this data to answer questions so that we can ask who participated in SEMIC, how many people participated in SEMIC, who participated in SEMIC and speaks Italian, and things like this. That's it from my side, and I'm happy to see you in the next workshop. And yeah, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Great, thank you, Dennis. I think it's a nice teaser to encourage you to participate in the second workshop as well, if you didn't intend already. So we are finished with the round of talks. We have maybe less time than anticipated, but I think it's always like this. Presentations go a bit over time, but we still have 10 to 15 minutes to discuss, and I see Max Deckers raised his hand, so go ahead. Don't forget to open your mics if you have questions or comments. Max.
Hello, well, thanks for all the interesting presentations. And I think the idea that you use Wikidata to sort of create synergies and connections between things is a really good idea. One thing that I always come back to in this kind of areas is I see that a lot of those things are projects where people are trying things, are building links, building connections. Do any of the presenters have any ideas on issues like maintenance and sustainability? Because if you create links, someone, I think Clifford Lynch made a famous statement, interoperability creates interdependencies. So in that sense, I was wondering whether people with the talks have any idea of how things can be made sustainable and how resources can be assigned on the longer term to maintain all of this. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you. Very important topic. I think Dennis mentioned already that we are working on this to make it long-term and not just an image at a given moment. I saw Mihai nodding as well. I don't know if you want to say a word.
Yeah, actually, what Max said is very true. Does apply very much to what we do at OP in terms of vocabularies, because actually it's very easy to create a vocabulary. You know, you just come up with an idea, bring two people together, and they come up with a list of things that needs to definitely will have an applicability somewhere. But maintaining that list is a bigger issue here, and you need to have resources, you need to have tools, and you need to have a process for that. because without knowing, I experience every day, you know, during our presentation, that we try to train people to work with different tools, and in theory they know how to use them, and practically they know, but without having the process put in place in order to make sure that everything takes place as it should at the right moment and so on, everything crumbles somehow. And indeed, you have even worse result with interoperability if you don't plan it properly. So Max, yes, you're right, it is a problem, but how to solve it? It's probably just planning ahead. That's the only way, planning ahead for everything.
And some tools can help. Yes, Denise, you want to complement?
Yeah, maybe. So if so, one way we deal with it is that basically there is large part of knowledge that is common knowledge, and like there are editors that basically keep this knowledge up to date in Wikipedia. There are also people that keep this knowledge up to date in Wikidata. So one part basically to handle dynamicity of knowledge is basically to let the community basically maintain part of it, with some of the drawbacks that it might bring with, that it might not be authoritative, or that it might contain mistakes. But yeah, so if you are willing to basically take some of these risks, then you get basically some of these keeping knowledge alive for free.
Yes, sorry, so someone ringing here. I just check, but there is a question for you, Denise, in the chat about if you are offering the QA plugin as a Wikibase extension. I don't know, it's not yet the case.
So, no, it's not an open source project currently. Of course, you can contact me, and yeah, so this is our main product. So this is how we finance ourselves. So it's not a free plugin, but of course, it's available for potential use as a customer.
Okay, sorry, I'll be back in a minute. It's or Claudio, can you just
Yes, so maybe I take this chance to ask my question. So I've seen from the presentations, there's clearly the idea that the common models can emerge from collaboration of, at the very least, the people that have presented today. So in that, we are in line with what SEMIC wants to achieve. I made my own idea of what, of the presentation that I've seen, what can be, where synergies can be made. So the one becomes the client of the other. But my questions I wanted to ask to everybody who presented, or even those who haven't presented, whether you have had the feeling already which data can you use from any of the projects that we've seen. So whether you foresee already, I can jump in or connect to these data sets because it's useful to me. Yeah, or work together with another project. So we combined our say knowledge would be larger and useful to the business. Yes. I think Levine as a raised hand. I don't know whether it's for answering the question.
Yes, just a quick reaction. Yes, we indeed in all the work that we are undertaking to see how we can make the data that we have more interoperable, we definitely look to existing solutions, and instead of even aligning to those solutions, we are considering simply to replace it. One of the the best example is that we plan to implement in our system the Eurovectosaurus for subject-oriented topics. We currently have such a list our own, poorly maintained, not very good managed because of lack of resources, and we definitely would simply like to replace our list with something that is already there and is very much alive and kicking.
Also on our side at OP, you know, it's what Lieven is doing there with their list of people that have been actors, let's say, how they call them. It will be very much important for us, let's say, we already started discussion last year about this. For us, is practically this thing is dragging because of, let's say, legal aspects, what we can publish, what we can make, because currently all our vocabularies have been engineered to be open, you know, but when you get into to personal data, that might not be that open. So it's a new world for us to understand how can we publish something, but also keeping some things a little bit private.
Yes, but for those person names, it's of course clearly sensitive. That's clear. But OP already has a short list of what is it called again? Political leaders. So it's an existing list. It's published. It's simply the names of the commissioners in all its language variants. So there's a clear need to have that kind of information available. So users would use the same kind of information when using such a person name, but it's not really more than just that. I mean, it's the name of the person and then the term of being in office and maybe a role. Yeah, personal data. I think on Wikidata there is already much more information, I think, available in the public domain about the life of these persons. But yeah, it's important to scope that correctly, of course. But maybe, yeah, we sometimes think that it is very very sensitive and dangerous to publish person names, but most of the time these are public persons and there's already a lot of information out there. And political leaders, sometimes they like to be exposed, of course.
Well, for us, it's also important to integrate that kind of data with a service, because just publishing a table inside our new vocabularies website doesn't make much sense. But integrating such a list with something like Who's Who, the Who's Who service provided by OP, will very much make sense. So that's why we try to, let's say, to bring the colleagues from Who's Who team to this effort somehow, because they will be much appropriate to use the data.
Great, interesting discussion. I'm sure we will continue it next time also at the second workshop. I wanted to say also, if some people today didn't have the opportunity to present because they were not sure yet about what data would be relevant, there is still time, of course, even if you didn't present today, but if you're thinking of a use case or you have something in mind where Wikidata, Wikibase could help, please go ahead and register for the second workshop. I don't know if there are remaining questions, but if not, I think it's a good transition to the wrap up. Just mention that we will have these two more workshops. The second one is end of February, in 1 month, more or less, and it will take place physically in Brussels. We decided not to go for hybrid solution this time, so there will be no WebEx link. It will be physical only. If you don't work or live in Brussels and you want to participate, then you will have to arrange the travel to Brussels. It will be a full day and it will be very much hands-on really this time, because we think it's not possible to really see the potential of these tools just talking about them or seeing screenshots. At some point, we really need to get our hands dirty, and we have we saw what Martin was proposing with the Light apps, with OpenRefine. Dennis is showing some very concrete things we can do by using Wikibase. So and also we'll have easier examples just inside the web browser, or more advanced possibilities by using Python. There is a tool called PyWikiBots that can ingest data in a Wikibase or Wikidata. So there are many possibilities, and it's really the idea to explore them together with your data, so that it's not too abstract, but you have a concrete use case. And then we'll have a final third workshop end of March, and this will be on WebEx again like today, but it will be more a reflection on what we have done mainly during the second workshop. What are the lessons learned? What are the advantages? What are the blocking points? And if you feel that you are missing something to make the uptake of Wikidata, Wikibase a reality for your work, well, there will be the opportunity also to relay these concerns to the developers of the tool, because we are in contact with Wikimedia Deutschland. We signed a memorandum of understanding with them too, and there will be someone from Wikimedia Germany at this workshop listening really to your feedback about the tool, about the good things, but potentially the bad things or the new features that you would like to have. And we will see if it aligns with their current roadmap or if they can integrate later on. And it's really nice to be involved also with them, to have this kind of open discussion. And then this is also very important. We don't want that after the third workshop, it just stops there and we go all to back to business as usual. We want to follow up individually with you, and Claudio also will help me on that track to really be close to your use case and to help you, to assist you. If you want to have a concrete implementation, we can support you. Dennis also has a lot of experience already, so we really want that if you decide to go in this direction, you can count on the SEMIC community also to help to provide documentation assistance, documentation and so on. And so the central place for all these events and so on, and the community, small community of 25 people here around interested in Wikibase, Wikidata is on Joinup. You know the URL already, but I put it there again. So stay tuned, and we will send shortly the link to register for the second workshop, and we hope to see you there in Brussels in 1 month. Thanks a lot for attending today. Thanks to all of the speakers, but also the attendees.
Max, just one question regarding the organization of the second. You said that it's not hybrid, but at least it will be accessible on video for whoever doesn't participate to see what's happening there. Even if we don't interact.
This is difficult because a lot will happen on actual computers of participants and not shown on slides. That's why we decided not in theory. If there is a general introduction, we could record it, but the central part will be really hands-on and going around the room, and this is not very interesting to film, I think.
Correct, you're right. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Max.
Can close here just in time.